There are more than 25 million cars on the roads in the UK, and everybody complains about the cost of their motor insurance. However, it's this insurance which will cover us if we have an accident. There are about 40,000 accidents a year which result in death or serious injury. Obviously, if you're killed in an accident that's not your fault, you would hope that your family would be compensated so that they don't suffer as a result of that. But what we want to concentrate on particularly is what happens if you have an accident and you're disabled as a result of that accident, and therefore you earn less than you would have done. How much should you be compensated by in that type of situation? And the actuaries have put together tables for the lawyers called the Ogden tables, which combine actuarial science, statistics and economics. And these have been recently updated to take account of the research that we've done. How do they work? Well, they look at the different elements that you'll be compensated for. And one important part of this is your loss of future earnings. What we've done is to use the latest, most up-to-date data, the best data that's available. And what we've found is that the factors that affect you are overwhelmingly your educational attainment. Obviously, you would expect it to depend on the sort of work you do, but the sort of work you do is affected by the educational attainment you have. If someone is very highly educated, then they're more likely to be able to stay in work even if they're disabled. So therefore the compensation payment would be a bit lower for them than for somebody with no educational attainments at all. As a Senior Fellow of the Association of Personal Injury Lawyers and partner at law firm Irwin Mitchell, Colin Ettinger has been specialising in personal injury cases for over 30 years.
The impact of disability on employment prospects is fairly tough, really. It's hard to think of somebody who's had a major disability who's been able to get back to work in the way that they had prior to the incident. And while some protection is given under the Disability Discrimination Act, is that the obligations on employers are not absolute. They don't have to find somebody an alternative job.
And in fact, the figures show that almost 20% of people leave the labour force within 1 year of becoming disabled. And about 60% of disabled people are unemployed at any one time, compared with about 15% overall of non-disabled people. In the past, the compensation payments did not take adequate account of this, and our research has led to changes in the way these compensation payments are calculated, which will be much fairer to people who are suffering as a result of having had an accident.
Well, before the Ogden tables came in, when we're dealing with future loss, the courts really took a guess at it. People have said that they just waved a finger in the air and came up with a number. But the result of that was that the multiplier used to be quite low, certainly didn't reflect life expectation, and also quite unpredictable to say what the multiplier was going to be. I can remember, and this is going back quite a long time now, that as a practitioner it was difficult to approach it, but that as a rule of thumb you would work out what the life expectation was, looking at life expectation tables, divide by 2 and add a bit. And it was very unscientific. The Ogden tables, of course, are used for personal injury cases. They use the national life tables. So by adopting those, it's a lot more scientific. There's much more accuracy as to how much somebody should recover. The problem has been that in the handful of cases that have actually reached trial where the courts have been asked to apply these tables, they haven't done so with any rigour. It's true that in the commentary in the Ogden tables they say that these new tables are to be used as the starting point and can be varied. The problem is that the way that the courts are amending or varying the results have been dramatic, in the sense that the courts are obviously uncomfortable with the result of the application of the tables, because it means that the level of compensation people are receiving or should receive is much higher than they were receiving previously. I think that if a case comes before court using these new tables again, then what would be desirable is to have one of the authors of the tables give evidence, to give perhaps some more information about how the figures were arrived at, the basis of on which they're arrived at, so that the courts won't make these value judgments about disability and whether or not the amounts people awarded sounds too high.
Well, for me, the best thing would be if somebody was no worse off financially after the accident, so that they were properly compensated. And I believe that the new version of the tables gives the right guidance for people who are disabled after an accident, so that they will be fully and properly compensated. Unfortunately, at the moment, the judges seem to have gone back to the old days, pre-Ogden tables, when they like to just use their intuition. In my view, this means that people are still being undercompensated, and as soon as we can get to the point where the courts just use the tables as they are, the better.